I'm Brad the Bike Boy, and this is a video on how to adjust valve clearances on a traditional 2V style Ducati engine. Traditional 2V means pre-DS style head, which we might get to some other day. There's one sitting over there. So we'll do a few things. We'll talk about belts. I'm going to do a camshaft swap. I need to do a swap on this engine of mine. It's a 400 Super Sport engine, and it's got 620 cams at the moment. I'll go back to original cams, do the valve clearances, and then do the cam timing. Okay, quick tech tip for removing this plate on the end of the crankshaft. The early ones had a flat slot screwdriver, which could be a nightmare to get out, and even these ones with the 4mm can be quite hard. Make sure you've got a really nice sharp tool to get into the bottom of it. This one cracks pretty easy. If you've got one that you can't crack, you've got one out, but you can't crack the other, the easiest thing to do is put your tool in, nice and tight, and then tap the cover, and it'll come loose really quickly. Tech tip. Quick tip for removing the belt cover screws. Because these blocks surrounding the cam pulleys are rubber, they can split, and often you'll find that when you're trying to undo the screws, that it splits the rubber and twists the insert. There's a steel insert inside the rubber. So don't be afraid to drill the heads off the screws if it looks like it might damage the cover. Be pretty keen to do that because it saves you spending a lot of money on a cover. Okay, so now we'll just take the belt covers off. It's pretty straightforward. So now the belt covers are off, you can see the belts. This one has some aftermarket adjustable cam pulleys, but the actual marks we're going to be using are the same as all the other marks. I've got a crankshaft turning tool on the other side of the crank already. If it's in the bike, I usually just use the back wheel to turn the engine over, put it in top gear, turns over pretty easy. These engines turn over very easily because there's no valve spring effect as such. And you see the yellow dots on the cam pulleys. They're all the standard Ducati marks, which I just like to highlight yellow. And the main timing mark, there's a mark on the primary drive cover here, or the clutch cover here, that all the Ducati twins, belt drive twins have. And that mark and this mark line up, like so, at horizontal top dead center firing. And all the setup procedures you do on these engines are horizontal top dead center firing. Mark and mark. Now for the camshafts, there's a little knob on the rubber surround, and that lines up with that mark there. And similarly on the horizontal, there's a knob there, and that lines up with your mark on your cam pulley. Going to take the belts off now. This is an early or pre-98 small block, so it has the adjusters bolted to the engine cases, not to the cylinders like a later model, and the screws are sort of hidden in behind the belts. So they are a bit annoying to do, but you just need a narrow tool. So undo the adjusters and just slide the belts off. I usually keep the belts in order of where they were, so they go back on the same cylinder. And that's belts off. When you take the belts off, you really need to just check your rollers to make sure the rollers aren't rough. They're just a bearing. These fixed ones are a single piece bearing. It's a proprietary Ducati bearing. Back in the Panta days, there was 2 bearings there, and you could buy 3 bearings the same diameters that were the same width as the 2 Ducati ones. These days it's just one piece, and you just buy a new one from Ducati. I actually stock these days because I replaced so many on the later 696, 796, 1100 series engines. I see a lot of failures on them. The adjusters, again, you just check the bearings. You can replace these bearings quite easily, but if you are replacing them, this mounting pin is quite soft. So if you to try and get these bearings off, they're very, very tight on the pin. Heat them up and do it gently. It's very easy to deform the end of the pin, and then you can't get the circlip back in, or you can't get the bearings back on. So just one point to be aware of.